Thank you for joining us for this live yet again. Uh, One of the topics that we'll be discussing today, very close to my heart, which is about lifestyle rooted in yoga and Ayurveda, and how yoga and Ayurveda together, when you practice as a lifestyle, start to bring about that preventive inner balance in the body. So when you have that preventive inner balance, automatically you live a lifestyle which is more preventive in a way, where you stay away from any kind of health concerns or diseases, and of course it has an impact on your skin as well. So I have Neve with me today. Just give me a second. Hi Neve, I think I can see you there. If you could just send me your request again. Your previous request actually got, I don't know where did it go. So if you could just send me your request again. I cannot see you right now. Okay. So in the meantime, Neve gives us a joint request. So the idea of this podcast, Instagram live, is to basically talk about what are certain Ayurveda and yoga practices. How do we look at yoga and Ayurveda in our daily routine, and start to practice things so that we start to work on that inner balance naturally. Okay, I think the request is there. Yeah, Neva, I can see your request. I am accepting it. I don't know what's the concern. Okay. Okay, it's saying you're unable to join. I can see your request. So if you could just again send me a request, because it's not letting me accept your request. Okay, yeah, perfect. Hi Neve, hi, how are you?
Hello, how are
Good,
you?
good, great. Thank you so much. Am I
Good.
audible?
Yes, how am I?
Okay. Yeah, all perfect, all good.
Perfect.
Yeah,
It's good to see you.
same here. Thank you so much for accepting my invite to be there and share your knowledge and expertise with us.
Of
Uh,
course.
you, yeah, so something that I really liked about the content that you share. Of course, we'll get to know more about you in the session, but you really, help break down yoga and Ayurveda in a very simple language, in practically applicable form. So, you don't really have to get into the philosophy or the content. It's more about what to do
Mm-hmm.
and how to see the results. And because I am a keen believer and a follower of yoga and Ayurveda as a lifestyle, so I think there was a strong synergy there. I just love talking to people who bring the two modalities together, and then start to live it as a way of life, rather than just saying that, okay, I did a 1 hour of a yoga class.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay, so the idea again in this session is to speak about or bring about those aspects where we say that, some practical aspects where we understand how yoga and Ayurveda actually is a lifestyle. It's not just about that 1 hour or 2 hours of a class in a day. So but before we move forward, please help us understand what brought you to yoga and Ayurveda, and we'll take it on from there.
Right. I mean, so I am Indian. I grew up in Delhi
Mm-hmm.
mostly. So, kind of just growing up in India, you are surrounded by yoga more than Ayurveda. I mean,
Yeah.
Ayurveda has actually just quite recently picked up
Yes.
countrywide.
Yes.
But certain practices, certain traditions, certain things that grandmas are just naturally doing that are there
Yeah.
in the back of the
Yeah.
mind. But it was only when I actually left India and I was working abroad, and I was just seeing how burnt out people were, how mentally distressed people were. I was working in a corporate space for a while. First thing in the morning, people are taking shots of
Coffee.
coffee
Yeah.
to get the
I
day
see that all
rolling.
the time here.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
what, wasn't your sleep enough? Like, what's going
Yeah.
on?
Yeah.
And I've always kind of had this mentality that I want to do life differently. I want to be well. I want to be joyous. I want to be, really healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And it was right then kind of being struck by the ways in which people were living. And I've worked in many actually different types of industries: the arts industry, nightlife industry, corporate tech, and every single industry
Burns
across the
you out.
board, doesn't matter.
Burns you out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I was behind the scenes then, deciding to dig a little deeper and figure out what are modalities that can support me to show up in these
Mm-hmm.
spaces, but really with a clarity and a joy and empowered, that I
Okay.
can get through the day energized.
Yeah.
And that's when I turned back to yoga, turned back to pranayam, and found Ayurveda as well, and really started diving deep into the texts, into the practices, and actually embodying, even if it was a few things, not something crazy. And I think that's the misconception, is that you need to be doing 5 hours of something every day. It's like even 5 minutes but done consistently, really the effects were mind-blowing. And so from there on, I just continued to go deep till it became obvious to me that this was going to be my life path, and sharing it, teaching it, coaching it was going to be the work that I do.
Perfect. So, how many years of practice are you already there, and how does your yoga and Ayurveda lifestyle together look like on a daily basis? If you just need to break down in a day, what are certain
Right.
practices which are like, I would say, non-negotiable for you?
Right.
And then, of course, then you know when you are into it, you want to do more and practice more
Right.
things,
Right.
but it's optional.
It's seasonal, right?
Yeah,
We
yeah,
come ebbs and flows.
yeah.
So interestingly, a non-negotiable for me within my yoga practice is actually the yamas.
Perfect.
That is a non-negotiable for me,
You
and
you
that's something that,
hardly listen,
right,
hear somebody
yeah,
talking of that. Yeah,
right,
yeah,
that's something that's completely neglected, but that's step
yeah.
zero.
That's true.
Step step zero is don't lie, be truthful,
Yeah,
be kind and gentle in your speech towards yourself. Don't steal other people's time.
yeah.
Be respectful of your energy. Be moderate of your choices.
That's
And
true.
just those 5 yamas, if you can practice, I mean, that's already,
And
I
I
think
think I also look at it in the same way, like, if you're not practicing all of those things, you will not be able to sustain with your asana practice for a longer
you
time.
will.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's the
yeah, definitely,
foundation of, yeah. You kind of create
definitely,
a mindset and then you get into a space of practicing asanas.
totally.
Yeah.
And I think that didn't come to me immediately. I'll
Hmm.
be honest, like most people, I was drawn to the physical postures. That was what was surrounded,
Yeah.
I was surrounded by it. But I got injured pretty fast
Hmm.
into my practice, and injury really teaches you something. You
Right.
have to pause, you have to reflect, and what urgency am I in? What
Yeah.
rush am I in? What have I forgotten? And then you come back to the
Yeah.
basics,
Yeah.
and you realize, oh, there's so much power here.
Yeah.
So, and you were mentioning, like, as a lifestyle,
Yeah.
there's nothing more integratable as a lifestyle really than your moral
Then
compass.
it becomes a part of you. Unless you make it a part
Right.
of you in your daily life, you are not actually living it. You're just doing 1 hour of a movement practice. That's all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So that I would say. And with Ayurveda, I would say really keeping my main meal between the 11 a.m. and 2
Hmm.
p.m. Like really consistently keeping that main meal right at the pitta time, right when the sun
Yeah.
is the strongest, right when my Agni is the strongest. So even if you are traveling, you're going here, you're going there, different foods, things are
Yeah.
coming, but at least you can rely a little bit that my digestion is going to support me if I can keep that
That's right.
consistent
Small
clock.
little steps.
Yeah,
And I think it's more about awareness. What you're eating, when you're eating, just those small little shifts are powerful.
yeah, yeah, totally.
Perfect. Yeah. So now we are talking of how it starts to bring us in a certain state of balance. I would want to step a little back, and for the listeners who are not into the space of yoga and Ayurveda, may not actually understand what is imbalance. And yoga and Ayurveda very strongly are the modalities that brings about your inner balance.
Right.
So let's start the conversation by understanding in daily life, how would you define imbalance?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how would you how can a listener look at their day and their
Mm-hmm.
health condition and say, okay, I think I'm going off balance? So what are certain cues that a person can look for?
Mm. Right. So certain cues that I know are not actually at the top of people's lists are appetite. How is
Hmm.
your appetite through the day? Do you have consistent, regular appetite twice or thrice a day? Is there a strong feeling of
Hmm.
hunger? That's showing that your metabolic health is
Yeah.
optimal and that things are being digested, processed. And the moment you feel that appetite waver, you feel it weak, that's a sign that something is off. And you can please pay attention then. Don't wait. But most people have no idea, right?
Yeah.
They don't have any sense. I actually, a lot of
And
people
I
think,
think you just mentioned that absolutely right, because
yeah,
appetite is the last thing that anybody would ever think that can be,
right.
they can
And
see it like a balance,
a
imbalance.
lot of people are thinking they're happy when they don't have
Yeah.
appetite. A lot of people are trying to lose weight. They
Yes.
don't realize it's counterintuitive.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. The other is definitely daily morning bowel movement. Are you
Hmm.
passing stool again? It's all, we're thinking about gut health,
Yeah.
obviously, in these things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Bowel, and then, of course, how do you feel after you eat a meal? Are you feeling groggy, lethargic? You need to take a nap,
Yeah.
or do you feel energized? Again, signaling to the strength of your gut. So I would say, just off the top of my head, three things to
Hmm.
be paying attention on a regular basis: energy levels, appetite, bowel movement.
Yeah, I think these are the big ones. Like if you
Yeah,
focus on these, rest of it already
yeah,
starts to get in line with
totally
the
agree.
healing.
Yeah,
Perfect.
totally.
Okay, so I would just want to uh, you know uh, my next question would be around co-joining yoga and Ayurveda, and both have a philosophy rooted in the idea of balance, which is what we're talking about. Now,
Right,
Hatha Yoga looks at balance from the perspective of balancing your sun and moon energies, you call it,
right,
or you call it your cold and hot side, or you call
right,
it sympathetic
right,
nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system. Similarly, Ayurveda talks of balance from the perspective of keeping your doshas in balance. That's the
right.
understanding of Ayurveda. Now, do you see any synergy between the understanding of yoga, of like the definition of balance in yoga versus the definition of balance in Ayurveda? Do you see any synergy
Yeah,
there?
yeah, I think that they're both deeply intertwined because when you think about mechanisms to help support dosha balance,
Hmm.
you turn towards practices like yoga and
Yeah,
pranayam
of
because
course.
they are inherently flushing out toxins, in balancing the feminine and the masculine, and
Yeah,
balancing the nervous system. They're creating more intelligence in the cells, so that naturally feeds to flushing out any aggravated dosha as necessary.
absolutely.
And we know that in Ayurveda, for example, we have the sub pillars of health, and one
Yeah.
of them is ahara, and that includes ahara is not just food; it's also the breath.
Yes,
And
it's
there we
your
have your
emotion. Yeah, it's
right, and
emotions,
for your
everything, whatever you
emotions,
can.
your
Yes.
perspective, exactly.
Yeah.
And obviously, you are also practicing yoga as a full practice that
Yeah.
includes the lifestyle, the mentality. So it's so easy to just funnel from the yoga
That's right.
system to support
And I
creating.
don't think anyway it's not about bringing the two together. I believe the two have always been together.
Right.
It's just because
To-
of your lack of understanding. Maybe you're just practicing one and
Totally.
not focusing on the other.
They're
But
completely intertwined.
yes,
Yeah, it's like to me, it's actually it's been an interesting intellectual process for me to articulate how they are intertwined, or they're so
yeah,
intricately intertwined, because it feels intuitive in the body, right? When you're
yeah,
practicing yoga, when you're practicing Ayurveda, it's like obvious.
yeah,
Obviously, they co-evolve together.
yeah,
Obviously, they are situated in the same philosophy, so they were never separate. Of course,
exactly.
the lifestyle, the mindsets, the sattvic mindset, that is the ultimate health, right? Even
That's
in
true.
Ayurveda,
That's true. And
it,
that's
it,
balance.
it
That's another
right,
definition of
that
balance.
is the ultimate
Yeah.
balance. So even in Ayurveda, it's like, okay, if you're not sure about your doshas, just eat a
Mm.
sattvic diet, eat a sattvic meal.
So the
Sometimes,
different ends where you can just it's like different arms and branches
right,
spreading out, and you just pick up one branch wherever you feel comfortable and slowly get into that zone of
right.
sattva.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, that's kind of like, but I totally agree with you that they are inherently
Yeah,
intertwined, but definitely these specific components, integrating the breath to balance the nervous system,
yeah,
um, operating with the right mindset. I mean,
exactly.
pitta aggravation, for example, creates, let's say, aggravated anger and irritation
That's
and
true.
frustration and competitiveness, and that can be subdued and made gentle by some cooling
Yeah.
pranayam, for example.
Yeah.
You can flush out the heat and things
That's
like
true.
that. So
Yeah.
so many ways in which they just go hand in hand.
Exactly. So I was having my yoga class yesterday, and with my students, I was just discussing how, if you look at yoga and Ayurveda, the practices may come across very simple and aligned with certain timings. Uh, but if you look at the medical world or the modern world, they're uh, ev they've gotten into the depth of everything that you can think of, to the levels of you cannot imagine, but still they haven't reached a space where they can actually say that, okay, work on an integrated system with this simple stuff, and you don't need to actually get, I mean, you'll not reach a stage where you actually need to get into the details of why my digestion is not good, why my
Right.
kidney health is not good, why my liver is not good, why
Totally.
my mind is not. Exactly.
Totally. Yeah, yeah. Actually, that's an interesting point because I do have clients who come to me saying, I've been diagnosed with this, that,
Yeah.
they like to label it
Yeah.
and say this and that. And I say, okay, sure, but we're still going to take certain protocols to strengthen the digestive system,
Yeah.
relieve
Exactly,
toxicity.
absolutely agree. It starts with digestion,
It starts with
and any
the
traditional modality you
nervous
pick up,
system.
yes,
Yeah.
every traditional modality has these systems as the fundamental systems to take care of, and rest of the body and mind is
Yeah.
automatically taken care of.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean that's what I think what differentiates Ayurveda from all of the, as you said, so complex and detailed and all the
yeah,
modern science, but the underlying frame of Ayurveda is that your body is incredibly intelligent. There's a respect for
exactly.
certain
And
healing processes.
I truly believe the beauty of this entire thing is that yoga and Ayurveda have already given us a framework. What do you do in the morning, what do you do in the do midday, what do you do evening, what do you do bedtime, and you just need to follow it. You don't need to get into the complexities of how
Yeah,
it happens automatically. You
right,
just need to
right.
follow that
Yeah,
framework.
once it's on autopilot, I mean, it's the dream, and we know it's when we are really on it, and we can just
Actually,
feel how light the body is, how spirited, how clear the mind is, and nothing complex was done.
actually,
No crazy supplements were eaten, no crazy superfood, no crazy smoothies, no crazy protein, no crazy workouts, and I experienced energy and clarity and sharpness that is probably 100 times more than someone who's doing some intense workouts at the gym. And also I have a peace of mind, like a ease in my
yes,
mind, a gentleness in my spirit that I would not exchange for
for
anything. And I think
anything. I
that
agree. I completely agree.
maybe in the West is not a value that is really prioritized and
Yes,
upheld. So people are focusing a lot more on fitness and longevity and health, of course,
yes,
but there's this like I would say almost like rigidity, harshness, grind. There's something that's very like hard, harsh that
I agree. I
doesn't
completely agree.
quite,
So I have been
yeah.
teaching in one of the fitness studios in Canada. And initially, when I started teaching there, because I come from a traditional space of yoga, I had a lot of, alignment with the breath, alignment with holding postures, focusing a lot of inhalations and exhalations, which was the kind of form they had never experienced ever. And since this was like a fitness
Right,
studio,
right,
they did not wanted to have that focus also, because their customers were coming to them because what they were offering for. So
right,
it was like a pattern change for them, which I was offering.
right, right.
But the beauty of this is, initial first two classes, students came and told me that, um, you know uh, we are actually not able to relate to what you're teaching
Yeah,
us. And I was like, okay, because you understand movement, we are going beyond movement. Of course,
right,
movement is a part of it, but we are bringing in other aspects together.
right.
And I think somebody complained about me as well, that the format is not being followed. But
Right,
after about a week, the same people who told me that, we are not able to relate, came back and told me that, at bedtime, few of them, like, because people are high on medications there,
right,
right? So they told me, like, our BP is started to get normal. I was
Oh,
taking medications earlier. Because they test before they take medication, and said I don't feel the need because my numbers are coming normal, all normal.
wow.
So,
Yeah,
I do understand where you're coming from. It's like
right,
a superficial approach to.
right.
I think Ayurveda is still more prominent in the West in terms of deeply understanding. Because I think people are really, core people are taking in the essence and making it, make people do practice it as a part of their lifestyle,
Yeah,
as we're saying. But the ones who
yeah.
are only into yoga, not bringing the Ayurveda aspect together, are more mechanical, I would say. So
Right,
that's
right, right,
stability Ayurveda is bringing to the people who are
right,
actually in yoga.
right, right. But you know, I would say even with Ayurveda, there's a opportunity, like I was saying right at the beginning of this
Absolutely.
conversation, to go deeper with the ethics and the
Yes.
morality piece,
Yeah.
because you do see people who are practicing Ayurveda. Okay, they're eating very well. They, got
Yeah.
their daily clock going, circadian rhythm, but maybe with their family, in their personal family life, they are snapping, they lie, they're doing things that are on edge, and
Absolutely.
they don't think, okay, this is actually an area that gets to be cleaned
Yeah.
up too. This is actually an area that's
I think that's a very
um
subtle thing. That kind of an awareness, I don't think everybody gets, and it takes a lot of courage to get into that dark zone of yourself and for yourself realize that okay, this is something not right with me. I need to change
right,
that. So,
right.
but what I believe is that as we discussed, like there are different branches. Whatever branch you pick up, whether it is diet or yoga or
Hmm.
working on your model, whatever area you pick up
Mm.
and you get deeper into this, you will realize that you would want to change. That realization will start to happen automatically.
Right, right,
So it's
right.
just about
Yeah.
getting into that system, that's all.
Totally. And I think, it's so beautiful, the story that you shared, because it's not just about, you come, you're teaching a class. It's also, there's something about your energy, your spirit,
Exactly.
that inviting people in to trust
Yes.
you. But even in the first two times there was resistance, they
Yes.
still decided to come back. They still said, okay, this time works for me. I don't like it so
Exactly.
much. It's not really, but I'll give it a go, because something about you on an energetic level,
I
something about
completely
your authenticity
believe that. Yeah.
resonated with
Yeah.
them. And so that's also a beautiful thing to recognize as teachers, as coaches, that at least for us on our parts, when we are thinking about those more subtle pieces, it's not just about us, but it's also about how we affect and invite in people
Exactly.
who aren't so familiar with
The
this world.
unseen in you, basically, not the
Right,
seen, but the unseen in you.
right.
Absolutely. Okay,
Yeah.
so I think coming back to since we're discussing how the idea of inner balance starts with a good gut health. Now, from the perspective of yoga and Ayurveda, if somebody wants to get onto this journey of starting to work on their good digestive health,
Mm-hmm.
what would be your recommendations? Simple recommendations that anybody can just practically bring in into their life.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some simple yoga practices for digestive health, as well as
Mm-hmm.
maybe some principles from Ayurveda, maybe the dietary
Mm-hmm.
principles or
Mm-hmm.
the lifestyle principles. So, how would you, what kind of a practices would you suggest such a person
Mm-hmm.
who's trying to bring about that digestive balance
Mm-hmm.
from the approach of yoga and Ayurveda versus a medical or modern system where the focus is completely on maybe antacids or maybe
Mm,
constipation medications and all of that. So,
yeah,
you know, uh,
yeah,
how would you what would you recommend for such people?
right, right. So the underlying concept in Ayurveda is that we have a digestive fire
Yeah,
that we get to keep kindled and strong, and that's basically our metabolic health, and that's what processes our foods, assimilates it,
yeah,
converts it into nutrients and releases as waste material. And all of us grew up learning about metabolism. It's like one of the first things we learn in seventh grade, I think, across the world.
absolutely, absolutely.
Science, whatever, biology, metabolism, and then everyone just conveniently forgets about it. And the incredible intelligence of converting your inputs into outputs. And if there's efficiency and intelligence happening with that, then you feel energy with the food that you eat.
Yeah,
You won't have the food stuck in your system. It won't be clogged, so you won't have constipation. It won't be badly digested, so you won't have diarrhea. And so all of the things, all of the
hmm
symptoms of poor digestion, bloating, gas, acidity, are ultimately something is off. something is off balance with that metabolic health. And in Ayurveda, we understand that to be the digestive fire, Agni. So really simple to keep that stimulated, warm, but I'm not going to suggest anything too extreme because we don't know where people are at. But across the board, eat your meals at regular times, set the metabolic clock in your body. You set the clock. You don't wait, am I hungry now? Am I hungry then? You set a clock. You teach your body when it's time to digest, when it's time to process. To start with, depending on where you are at, but to start with, stick to well cooked foods, warmer foods, avoid anything that's cold, that's raw, that's frozen, because just intuitively, cold and all of that is the opposite quality of fire and heat. And so it's not conducive to supporting that warmth in the body. And
what's
definitely,
your take on maybe juices and smoothies? Because on one side, yoga and Ayurveda co-join, and if you look at the dietary principles which co-join with yoga, are the principles that you're talking about. Similarly, there's naturopathy and yoga also co-joins together, and when these two modalities join together, there's a lot of focus on juices and fresh
right,
juices. So
right,
how do you look at these two
right.
aspects?
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about choosing your faith and just going all the way
Yeah,
with it. Because the moments that you are, trying to figure out all these conflicting sciences, and each of them has their own, let's say, little bits of truth. But in my opinion, Ayurveda is the oldest life science. It has worked for
the
me
most
foolproof.
powerful. Yeah.
And I have tried naturopathy. Actually, before I came to Ayurveda, I found a
I
naturopathy book.
have also, and that's why I quoted this question, because
Right.
this question actually keeps confusing me a lot, because I have seen results with bringing in smoothies and juices as well. I have seen results with bringing
You
in
have
Ayurveda principles
amazing.
as well. Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
Uh, but how I look at it, frankly, just to, I don't know my theory, maybe right or wrong, but how I have seen it working for me and for my customers. So Ayurveda principles, I believe, are supreme. They're universal.
Right.
But when they were developed, the world was not that toxic.
Definitely.
Okay, that's where my theory goes to.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you look at today, maybe we are 100 times, 200 times, even 1,000 times more toxic than
Yeah.
when Ayurveda came in. So the
Yeah.
Ayurveda principles, when they were developed and when people were following it, they were already at a state of balance. It was just enhancing their balance. Now, if you
Right.
look at today, so much of a toxicity, so much of food toxicity,
Yeah.
no movement at all, exposure to gadgets. So there's a lot which I believe that directly starting with Ayurveda did not give me results, or did results to my clients, but starting with intense form of a cleanse using naturopathy as an aid for some time. I do understand vata imbalance may happen. I do understand that these clients may be the ones who may have vata imbalance, but keeping that thought away from a mind, just thinking that they are very, very toxic. And if I start with Ayurveda immediately, there's a possibility I may not be able to clean all the toxin. So let me
Right.
go this way of first cleaning them up, bring them to a certain level of balance, and
Right.
then cut them on that smoothies and juices, and then bring them to the
Right.
platform of Ayurveda, where I take them up in that balance. So this
Right.
is how I have kind of understood how,
Very
how to kind of.
interesting. And what about the idea that the Agni is so weak and Ama
Yeah.
is so high that there isn't a
So,
capacity to digest something?
okay, so just to give you some background, I come from a space of macrobiotics, which was my entry into wellness about 12 years back. Macrobiotics is very deeply based on the principles of Ayurveda. And my body and mind completely transformed for 1 year when I was studying all of that. And then I went ahead and studied raw food nutrition, which was completely opposite of what this had
Right.
been. But when I brought in, and there was another aspect to it, because I was doing very intense yoga practices at that time, which I wasn't doing during macrobiotic time. Now, if I simply go by the understanding of heating and cooling energies in the body, there was a lot of heat in my body because of those yoga practices.
Definitely. Right.
And it was building up, and already it was there, because being a Pitta personality, you're generating heat all the time with your thoughts, with how your metabolism is happening everywhere. So that brought a balancing aspect to me, bringing a lot of smoothies and juices because they were cooling.
Cooling,
So
right,
yes, so I did not think of Agni at that point in time, but practically I could see there was a lot of change that I was experiencing, which
right,
only macrobiotics did not give me.
right,
So but that was a certain at a certain level where a level of transformation happened, and after
right,
that I started cutting down on things. So I think it's more about you have to take a call very dynamically, what's going on
right,
with your body and
right,
mind. When
right,
you're very heated, I just thought, how do I cool myself
right.
down? And that cooling aspect did work for me.
Totally.
When I attained my balance back, that's where I switched more towards Ayurveda principles, because I know I don't want to get more cooler. I just
Right,
needed
right.
it for balancing the heat.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
take call based on that,
yeah,
intuitively. When
yeah.
are you more heated?
Right,
And you bring in more smoothies and
right.
juices to bring about that balance of
Yeah,
heat and cold. But if you
totally.
feel that you're moving more towards the cold side, and when you're moving towards the cold side, that is the imbalance of Agni, right?
Right. Yeah,
Too much of a
totally.
heat is not, too much of heat is also balanced, but it is in the favor of Agni.
Right,
But you
totally.
have to be somewhere in
Totally.
between. So, but that's kind of an
Yeah,
intuitive call I think
totally.
people need to take.
And that makes sense. I mean, that is ultimately aligned with Ayurveda
Yeah,
because those are the conditions in which
yeah,
I suggest coconut water,
yeah,
pomegranate juice,
yeah,
things like that, where cooling fruits, sweet
absolutely.
fruits, things like that.
But there would
So
be what I realized, as you rightly said, somewhere it's more about being aware of what's going on,
right,
because in a state of too much of a heat, which may not necessarily happen just with the yoga practice, in a day-to-day life also you may be quite heated, too much of movement,
right,
too much of thinking, too
the
much of
season,
aggression, anger,
right,
all of those heated elements in the body.
right.
And when you bring about that balance with the cooling stuff, for some time you feel good, your digestion feels good, your gastric conditions
But
start to sort out.
you
um,
know the limit.
Yes,
Yeah,
and you also start to get balanced. And this is what happened to
right,
me. But
right.
after that, when I kept overdoing it, I realized all of a sudden from nowhere I started to get bloating,
Yeah, heaviness.
which was an indication that I'm now getting more cooler,
Yeah, yeah,
because maybe Agni is impacting now and the food is not
yeah,
digesting. So then I
yeah.
came back to the center by stopping the raw stuff and moving more towards Ayurveda. So I
Right,
keep shuffling between when to do what depending what's going on.
right, right. So yeah, that's what it's like. Across the board, there are certain principles that are safe for anyone to use.
Yeah.
But obviously, the work that we do is highly customized, even
Yes.
with yoga and the asanas and the pranayama, it's highly customized. And that's the beauty as well of these modalities is that it understands each
Absolutely.
human as their own unique microcosm. And I'm not going to, slap one size fits all protocols onto anyone. So
Hmm.
there are some general ideas, but ultimately when I sit down with the person and I look at their skin and I understand their symptoms and I look at their tongue and their hair and everything and diagnose, then I understand, okay, what exactly is off balance deeper on an energetic level, on a mental level, on an emotional level, on a
Yes.
physical level. What is the level of toxicity in the body? What can it handle right now? And then accordingly you create a protocol.
Of
What is the
course.
strength of this person? What asanas are they able to incorporate right now? What is the mental strength of this person? I can give them 10 things to do, but if they are mentally weak, they're not going to do anything. They're going to feel
Absolutely.
overwhelmed. So it's
Absolutely.
also about meeting your customer or your clients where they're at and saying what is actually practical for them to integrate into their daily life right now with the type of routine, the type of lifestyle, the type of mentality they have. And the protocols can look quite different for the
Yes.
same seemingly
Absolutely.
diagnosis.
I completely agree. Completely agree. And that's why I say it's kind of keen observation to what's going on. And I think I keep it simple, from the perspective of judging a person how yin or yang they are, or maybe how heated or
Yes.
cool they are, and
Yeah.
then trying to bring about that balance. Great. So I have last two questions to ask you. The first one is about related to your nervous system. Okay, we do understand when we talk about inner balance, nervous system is the first system, though it may be subtle. Then there's nothing directly that a normal person may be system when we say, or the beginning point of starting to bring about that balance, I believe starts with the nervous system, because when you're balancing your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, automatically the internal functionality will start to function in balance, and everything starts from there. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, if your body is feeling like it needs to fight something, if it's on an attack mode, if it's like, it's not repairing, it's not resting, it doesn't have that intelligence internally, then everything is going to be like 1,000 times harder.
Yeah,
That is the ultimate vata imbalance. That is the ultimate stress, that the body is in complete it's in complete it's lost its ability to, with the intelligence, of the cellular intelligence, which is to heal, to repair, to recover. And you can't do anything. That's the but again, that's kind of like a reflection of where we are at as a society, where there's so much emphasis placed on the heat, on the masculine, on the action, on the
absolutely.
doing. So I mean, I think for you it must be obvious. The first thing needs to be, okay, we need to really just calm your nervous
Actually.
system.
So,
We need.
very interestingly, for some customers and clients, somebody is just wanting to lose weight, for example, or just
Mm-hmm,
wanting to get rid of constipation and trying out various things and still getting restless. Okay, it's not working, it's not working, it's not
mm-hmm,
working. So somewhere, you understand it's not going to work because you are taking body off the digestion mode by thinking too much, right? And
yeah,
it sometimes becomes really challenging to
right.
explain such people that whatever you're doing is absolutely important, but bigger than that is you're not thinking about it, and that's
Yeah,
where it's going to work.
exactly.
That's where
Yeah,
it is
yeah,
going to work.
totally. Actually, it's something I say to people all the time as well, which is, we I think COVID actually was a good time, because I saw so many people who were technically doing all the
Yeah.
things, right? They were doing all the right things, but still falling incredibly sick. And there was this question of, I don't get it. They seem to be doing all the right things. How is
Hmm.
immunity low? Da, da, da.
Yeah.
And the answer was because internally there's a hypertension, there's a hyper rigidity, there's a hyper perfecting energy, there's a hyper controlling energy
Yes.
that just doesn't let the mind rest. And
Exactly.
that is the ultimate um, cause of low immunity,
Yeah.
really. If your mind is so hyperactive, there's no inner peace internally, then you are going to be very susceptible to any sort of dysfunction.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I totally agree with what you said.
So now, when we're talking nervous system, do you think there are certain doable yoga and Ayurveda practices that anybody can follow, even if they are not able to consciously control their thoughts or their mind, or do not
Mm-hmm,
have that understanding of nervous system, not
mm-hmm,
thinking of the technicalities, just doing certain things that
mm-hmm,
indirectly will start to bring about some shifts in the nervous
mm-hmm.
system with the
Mm-hmm.
practices, because practices people still understand, maybe body oiling people understand,
Mm-hmm.
starting to practicing deep breathing people understand,
Mm-hmm.
meditation people understand, but they would not understand, okay, how do I calm down my nervous system? That's kind of technical for them, right? So
Mm-hmm.
are there any specific practices that you think you can talk about which indirectly are going to impact them uh, positively and calm down their nervous system, even without getting into the technicalities of the nervous system?
You mean, because when you speak, the first practice that comes to my mind is just the Ujjayi pranayam. But
Hmm.
you mean like a practice that's, I don't have to explain, or I don't
No, no,
understand.
I'm talking of such
Yeah,
practices only. Maybe some yoga asanas or
right,
some pranayams or maybe some
right,
foods, practical things.
right. Right, right. Well, warm water is great. I think like just something as simple as sipping
It's
on
energy.
some.
It can completely
Yeah,
awakens you up.
yeah.
Yeah,
Because yeah, it's just, opens the channels, rests the body. We don't have to get into technicalities, but you and I know there are so many deeper
it's
scientific
getting to
benefits.
the layers, deeper layers of where it's
Right.
coming from. Yeah,
And then Ujjayi pranayam, which is just a slight constriction of the
yeah,
glottis, the throat area. When you inhale, you exhale. And again, you don't have to explain it, because anyone can do it and
absolutely,
immediately feel the benefit.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And
just three
this
breaths.
is what actually works. Such
Yeah,
quick fixes only work because
yeah.
people want quick results. So
And they can do
nobody's
it.
interested into the
They
technicalities.
can
Yes.
return to it every single day. So yeah, those are things, I told you, like in Delhi right now is pretty
Yeah.
polluted. And so even for me, when there's things that you can feel the stress, you can feel the intensity, you don't have the energy to do all of the things that you know
Yeah,
work. So you kind of just pick, okay, what is the easiest thing for me to return to? Ujjayi pranayam, warm water, warm bath, simple, and just go such a long way. So
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Great.
yeah,
Okay, so my last question to you is again a curious question, since you've stayed in the West and you've seen the yoga community here, and when we say that yoga is the science of body, mind, and soul balance, okay, now this definition according to the tradition is more about working on different aspects of you, like you said, yamas and
yeah,
niyamas, and then asanas and
yeah,
pranayam. So asanas is just one part of these
yeah. Right,
8 steps that yoga
right,
talks about.
right.
But the Western world, I think 90, 95, 98% is completely obsessed with step number 3, which is asana and the
Right.
movement. So when the 8 limbs of yoga says that the balance can be attained by following the eightfold path of yoga, and it's only asanas, different forms of yoga, knitted into these asana sequences, is what the focus is in the West. Do you think a person can attain their balance at any level just by following step number 3 and ignoring all the other steps?
Any type of balance, it really depends on the teacher, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because a teacher is teaching asana, and let's say they have a way about them where, like you were teaching asana,
Yeah,
right, in the fitness studio, and your students there did have the
yeah,
effect where they were feeling
yeah,
more balanced, their BP had gone down. So I think, if a teacher comes in with that mentality, that headspace, that this doesn't need to be a competition, we're not here to outperform each other with handstands and things like that. We're really here to, like you said, do both. Activates the nervous system, and
Re-
also relax
relax it.
relax
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
So you're doing a little bit of both. You're grounding, you're activating, you're bringing into harmony the masculine, the feminine, the solar and the
yeah,
feminine. So if you can do that through the asana practice, which obviously you can depending on the asana practice, depending on how it's
yeah,
taught, then
yeah,
for sure some aspect is definitely going to be balanced. But that's again is so, it's so specific. And unfortunately that extends now to the climates within India too. It's not like, you go to shalas in India and they are so holistic and so,
yeah,
touching on every single thing. Everyone has busy lives, everyone wants to get a workout in, everyone wants to look good, everyone wants the easy way
yeah,
out. Yoga seems to, okay, there's flexibility, there's openness, there's this, that, this. But if it's taught correctly, you are balancing strength and agility, strength and
yeah,
flexibility. You are, like I said, but we know so many styles that are still too much focused on activating the
yeah.
heat aspect, and long term
Actually,
that would have negative impact.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I think, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, because I see that a lot here. It's, as you said, like too much of heating forms. By nature, also these people are heated, and then
right,
they're bringing in more heat with all those practices, which,
right,
so you can actually make out what could be at the back of a lot of mental conditions which are there in the West compared to
right,
the East.
right,
So yeah,
right,
perfect,
right, right. Yeah. Yeah, well,
great.
it's beautiful. I'm glad that you are at least as a beacon of that balance in,
I
even as
don't
an
know, I'm trying my
individual.
best,
Yeah,
and frankly, it's not easy because
no,
you can only speak a language that a person can
right,
understand. If somebody's not
totally,
understanding the language, even if that's the right language, it
totally.
becomes a little challenge. But
Yeah,
that's okay. I mean, you get above all of that, and you know what your job or dharma is, and you keep doing
right.
that. So
Yeah, yeah, beautiful.
perfect. Great. So thank you so much, Neve. I think I'm done with my questions. Anything on the ending note that you would want to speak? Maybe some question that you think should have been there, which I did not ask.
No, these were brilliant questions. I think so, so, so useful for anyone listening, just checking in, curious about this world, or just needed the reminders. We need those, even
Yes.
the best of us need the
Yes, you
reminders.
know
So,
everything, but there are times when you just
yeah,
your consciousness
yeah,
fades.
Yeah, so good
Perfect.
for both of us to get back on some practices maybe we had put
Actually,
aside.
actually,
And
I keep reminding myself that with all those sessions, I mean, every
yeah,
time you're learning something from, people when
yeah,
you're talking to them.
beautiful. And
Perfect.
happy Diwali to you.
You
I'm
too.
sure
Thank you so much.
it's celebrated. You're in
Yeah.
Canada, right?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
huge there too, right? A lot of
Uh,
Indians.
yeah. I mean, compared to other countries, yes. But yeah, I mean, I mean, that vibrance of India definitely is not there, but
Yeah.
comparatively, yes.
Okay, beautiful. Well, I hope you celebrated well, and yeah, take care.
Definitely. Thank you so much for being there. Thank you, Neve.
Of course. Bye bye.
Yeah, bye bye. Bye bye.